Hello and welcome to the Second String, the best source for college football news on the campus of UNL. I'm your host, Nate Muehlbach, and joining me is Alex, dresses for Halloween as sexy Butch Jones, Fernando.
No, I would not go anywhere near that costume.
Yes, you would. Don't lie to yourself.
Oh my goodness.
You see, we here at the Second String like to come at you with an informed, mature take on college football.
Yeah, Alex does. I don't think Nate counts as that.
No, but I like to pretend.
Fair enough.
We got a lot of good college football news. It was a great suite of games last week. We have an amazing Husker win. Maybe not an amazing Husker win, but
it's a Husker win nonetheless.
It qualifies as amazing just based on the fact that we won. We'll do that. We'll preview the next game against Northwestern, and we'll talk about the first playoff rankings that came out and some of the games next week.
Spooky playoff rankings. Teams jumping around. Halloween night. I don't know. Some people got some tricks. Some people got some treats.
I suppose.
Come on.
Okay, it was nice. It was nice. All right, so first things first, we are going to come up with the games from last week that we thought were really good. And let's start off with probably the biggest one, the one that me and you bet on. Alex could not wrestle the intro duties away from me with this bet. I managed to take it out. This is Penn State and Ohio State. The Buckeyes took it over the Nittany Lions, 39-38. Alex, your thoughts?
Oh my goodness. We were watching this one from the opening kick, and that opening kick, I told you right away, Barkley's taking it to the house. Barkley took it to the house, and I'm like, oh, this bet's in the bag.
I thought it was in the bag. Up until the middle of the fourth quarter, I was like, this game's over. Penn State is completely dominating them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The Nittany Lions looked phenomenal through the first 3.5 quarters of this game. I think got a little bit conservative towards the end of the game, but also don't want to take anything away from the Buckeyes.
No.
Fantastic comeback. JT Barrett leading their offense to 19 points in the fourth quarter, continually being down. I mean, they were down 11 points with about 5.5 minutes left. Leads them back. I cannot say that I'm necessarily that surprised. I know Ohio State has some great offense. I was surprised more so with Penn State's defense kind of finding the holes or just falling apart a little bit at the end and not really getting their ground game going with Barkley and McSorley. But man, what a great game nonetheless. It was fun to watch.
Phenomenal. And I think, Alex, that you're going to have to give a little apology to JT Barrett.
Okay, I'll give a little bit of an apology to JT Barrett. He only missed 6 passes, 33 of 39.
There was a point at the game where he had completed 16
in a
straight.
row. Ohio State record, honestly.
Against one of the best defenses in the country, too.
Yes. No, I'll definitely eat my words there. JT Barrett, still not one of the best passers in the nation.
That's fair.
Definitely proved to me and definitely to the nation that he's better than most people might give him credit for.
Exactly. 328 yards, 33 for 39, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was just a fantastic. He spread the ball around really well. No receiver was really that bad. I mean, KJ Hill had 102 yards, but that was his leading receiver.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he had spread it around to a number of different pass catchers. But the thing to me was, when you watched him against Nebraska a couple weeks ago, his balls were kind of all over the place. His receivers had to adjust and make kind of catches in positions they weren't necessarily supposed to be in. The ball would be a little bit outside, a little bit inside, a little bit low, a little bit high. And watching against Penn State, he was just about on the mark on every single pass.
Yes.
And I think that's something that he's been improving on throughout not only this season but his career. And it definitely played a big factor in their comeback win because I thought his inaccuracy was going to cost him the game. Ended up rewriting the script, and his accuracy won him the game later on.
Yeah, and I think the game is a tale of two stories. I think the first is JT Barrett and just how good he was at pretty much all phases of the game. He kept them in it during the early game when I thought, Ohio State was going to go down 21-0.
Oh yeah.
There was a couple drives where they stalled. They turned it over. They fumbled it on the very first drive of the game. Penn State marched right back down and scored within the first 5 minutes, up 14-0. And I was like, this could be really bad. But JT Barrett, he was calm and collected. He drove Ohio State right down the field. They scored to bring the game sort of closer, and he just kind of kept them in it until the fourth quarter when they just took control and finally took the lead with just a little bit left of the game to go. But I think the second half of the game is just I'm not that disappointed with the Penn State defense. It's their offense that really disappointed me, especially down the stretch. Now, Saquon Barkley, he took that kickoff all the way down. I said, oh, wow, Ohio State, they can't stop him. He's too good. But he finished with 44 yards rushing. Trace McSorley had more rushing yards than he did.
Yep.
21 carries, 44 yards rushing.
Only 23 receiving yards as well. Not nearly as effective out of the backfield. They covered him pretty well. They put a lot of safeties on him to kind of counter his speed. He
did, and I think for Saquon Barkley, he had Heisman aspirations, and is this the dagger? Did this put the dagger in his Heisman hopes?
I don't know. I mean, he's still probably the most breakout player we've had this season. There's some other names kind of being tossed around. Bryce Love up in Stanford. He didn't play this past weekend, so he could have kind of taken a little bit of a dent. Mason Rudolph at Oklahoma State kind of getting back on track. Baker Mayfield always in the mix.
I think Baker Mayfield's my favorite to win it the rest of their season.
Yeah.
I think
JT Barrett kind of jumping back in the mix now too.
JT Barrett maybe he's impressive, but yeah, the Penn State rushing attack, they had under 100 yards rushing.
Yeah, overall their offense, I mean, it definitely showed in the second half, but early on in the game too. The reason Ohio State was able to keep it kind of close, it wasn't only just JT Barrett, it was their defense. Penn State couldn't get a lot of rushing yards going in the game. They couldn't have those long, sustainable drives. Their two early scores, again, opening kickoff return, and then a fumble on Ohio State's side of the 50. So they had short fields to work with, quick points, and they had just kind of the momentum with that early kickoff. So they didn't have a whole lot of big drives put together until late in that second quarter, maybe that third quarter drive. There wasn't a whole lot of just offensive production that you normally see from this Penn State team.
Yeah, and I think you credit the Ohio State defense for that a lot.
For sure.
You were a little down on their defensive backfield, but I think their defensive line really gave enough pressure. Holmes, Bosa, Jones, they have a lot of talent in their front four, and why they didn't get the numbers in terms of sacks.
Yeah, it came away with 2 sacks, but 13 tackles for loss.
Yeah,
the biggest thing, just really putting pressure on Barkley and McSorley, keeping them in that run game contained. I mean, there was numerous plays we saw Barkley getting hit in the backfield 2 yards behind the line every other snap.
Yeah, I mean the centerpiece play that illustrates that, in my opinion, was when they tried to do the option.
Yeah, that read option.
And the defensive end just ate both of them at the same time.
Yeah, McSorley couldn't get a decent read on any of them because he's getting pressure up the middle with his line being driven back, but then Bosa and then the other end.
I think it was a little further. I know Penn State lost a lineman during the game. I don't remember what lineman it was, what position he was playing, but
I think Nebraska, it was their right guard or tackle.
It was their right guard or tackle, yes. And when you lose starters like that, as we'll talk about a little bit later in the Nebraska game, it can make a whole lot of issues. And Penn State just seemed like they never really recovered from that.
No, definitely tough loss for the Nittany Lions. I thought they were kind of the real deal. Honestly, could have gone all the way. Still probably could. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a scenario like last year where Ohio State has the head-to-head this year, but Penn State could jump them if Ohio State loses a couple. Penn State gets into the Big Ten, or
I think they are too. I think
Ohio State loses the Big Ten. Who knows?
I think overall Penn State is the better team.
Really?
If this matchup was played 10 times, I think Penn State would win 7 or 8 of them. I do think Penn State's the better team. Ohio State just played gutsy. They played good. JT Barrett played one of the best games of his career.
Oh, for sure.
And Penn State just kind of didn't play that well down the stretch. And I think, like I said, 7 or 8 times out of 10, I think they do play it and close that game out.
Yeah.
But like I said, props to Ohio State. I think they control their own destiny now. Penn State does not. Penn State will have to rely
They need some
on
people to lose.
either losses or voters.
Maybe they could both get in the playoff.
We'll see. I still don't think two teams from a conference.
You're not a two-team conference guy?
We need to go to eight team playoff before we get the two teams of the conference. Then I'd be fine with it.
All right. Well, moving on from Penn State and Ohio State, let's look at some other big games. How about we talk about TCU and Iowa? Two top teams falling down. Penn State, the first one at number 2, but TCU, number 4, going into Ames, Iowa. The Cyclones ranked 25th, coming out of nowhere, 14-7.
Defensive struggle. I don't know about that. I would more clarify it as an offensive struggle.
Yeah.
Especially for the Horned Frogs. I mean, Kenny Hill, it's just a nightmare scenario when you think about Kenny Hill, and everybody is like, oh, Kenny Hill, he's so improved. He's playing so much better this year. And then he plays this game, and you're like, wow, this is just the same old Kenny Hill who couldn't hack it at Texas Tech. Same old
Texas
Kenny
A&M.
Hill. Yes, Texas A&M, you're right. As same old Kenny Hill who was a game manager for TCU's mediocre season last year.
Yep.
12 for 25, 135 yards, 2 interceptions. Though I don't want to denigrate Iowa State's defense. They are a very, very good defense.
Yeah, very good team overall. And honestly, I cannot remember the last time I've seen TCU held to just 7 yards and just barely over 300 total offensive yards. That's not an offense that you're able to shut down very easily.
No, Gary Patterson has a good system there.
So what Matt Campbell's been able to do in just Iowa State overall, great gap integrity from what I've watched with their games, especially with the run defense.
They just play very solid fundamental football.
Yeah, they attack down the line really quickly. They get in the backfield and they wrap up. Oh my gosh, the greatest thing I've seen in college football is a team that wraps up. I mean, you don't get that here in Lincoln very often. So
no, it's not a common thing where you see Iowa State and you go, now that's a good defense. Now that's a team who really knows how to tackle. They play their fundamentals well.
Yeah.
They're just not, and like I said, I don't really have the hate for Iowa State that I know a lot of people older than we do have.
Yep.
And so I don't think it's too bad. I kind of enjoy it. They probably deserve a little bit of success.
Yeah. Need a little bit of work on the ground game. TCU's defense held down their offense pretty well. I mean, Iowa State's been red hot lately. It's not an easy offense to stop, but Kyle Kemp still got his marks, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Lazard over 100 yards. So, I mean, that offense moving pretty well. Kyle Kemp kind of taking control. Clear starter now in my book.
Oh, yes. There's no question. You stick with him for the rest of the year. David Montgomery, he didn't get quite the production from a number standpoint, but his toughness. There was one run where the highlight reel run where he juked out, he carried a guy, he was like kind of crawling, hobbling on the 2 legs of his hand.
Definitely a hard back to bring down, and that's what you got to see. If you're a team like Iowa State, nobody ever considers you for a conference championship, let alone a college football playoff spot. You got to have players that are going to give their maximum effort and fight for every single yard like that.
Well, Iowa State's in the driver's seat for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah,
if they went out, they're done. They got Oklahoma State left, and that's about their only big team. And I mean, for personal reasons, I hope they don't do that. But like I said, they got West Virginia, who they are not favored against. West Virginia is favored by 2.5.
What?
Yes, it's in Morgantown.
I guess, but I mean, West Virginia's defense has been atrocious.
Yes.
Before the Oklahoma State game, they gave up over 1,000 yards against Texas Tech and Baylor combined.
I'm not doubting that.
Now you got to add in Oklahoma State, what they did to them last week. I don't see West Virginia coming away with that one.
No, and then they got Oklahoma State, Baylor.
Baylor and Kansas State shouldn't be an issue. I mean, late November, you never want to kind of get content and slip up, but I think their next 2 weeks will really determine what Iowa State can do and see if they can.
But still, I think they're gonna go 8-4, 9-3.
I could see it.
I would not be shocked, and that's an amazing comeback for Iowa State.
Oh, for sure.
As for
Especially only in the second year for Matt Campbell.
Yes.
Great turnaround.
I mean, and TCU, they're still 7-1. They're still fine. If they win out, they'll probably be in a pretty decent spot for the Big 12 championship as well.
Yep.
They still got Oklahoma left on the schedule. That'll be a big one for them.
They got most of the big ones out of the way, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already taken care of Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Texas is still out there, so that could be a tough one.
Yeah, I think both of these teams have a fair bit of hope left for the season. I don't think it's over for either of them by any shot. Now let's go to our last big game for the season. Not for the season, for the week. This is not as big as the other ones because the result was a little lopsided. This is Notre Dame, number 9, taking it to NC State, 35-14. Notre Dame's defense, it's good.
Looking pretty good. The ground game, I mean, we kind of speaks for itself. We've talked about that a number of times on this show.
Josh Adams.
Oh, my gosh.
Adams, man.
Do you think he could be in the Heisman race now?
I wouldn't put it past him.
Nobody's really mentioned that lately, but I mean,
he doesn't.
He averages 200 a game almost.
Let's see. Splits this season.
I mean, and just watching this game, Notre Dame was very solid on offense. Again, the normal with the ground game, but Brandon Wimbush still managing the offense well. Not gaudy numbers, passing 104 through the air and 2 touchdowns, but very consistent. And you mentioned the defense, just holding down a Wolfpack team with Finley at quarterback. Very, very experienced guy. He knows how to win on the road. He knows how to win big games. And, I mean, Notre Dame got a lot of pressure on him. They came away with just 1 sack, but they kind of hurried him throughout the game. 5 tackles for loss.
He was very, very...
wasn't comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, he was very threatened by the Notre Dame
17 of 37,
defense.
too. So even when he did get the ball off, the coverage was phenomenal for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of pass breakups, and 7 pass deflections throughout the game.
Yeah, they broke up the passes. They disrupted Ryan Finley, and they just kind of pulled away on defense. Was able to just, I think, pull away from a much less talented team, and that's what you got to do when you're a top 10 rated team, and you just got to use your talent and force it down your opponent's throat, and eventually hopefully they're just going to give, and that's exactly what NC State did.
Yeah. North Carolina State, though, still kind of controlling their own destiny in the ACC. They're they're battling Clemson for the top spot in the Coastal Division.
Yeah, that'll be a big game.
Big game coming up, and, I mean, who knows? They win out, they get to the ACC championship, play a Virginia Tech Miami team. They could find themselves in a New Year's Six bowl. True.
Anyway, I mean, Notre Dame is definitely a team to look out for. We'll talk about them a little bit later when we discuss the playoff rankings, because spoiler alert, they're in it. Now, before we go, is there anything you would like to talk about from the last week in a game?
Oh my gosh, yes. Little Pac-12 after dark action. USC at Arizona State. Ended up being
a blowout.
Yeah, ended up being a blowout. USC definitely kind of took it to them, but absolute insanity at the end of the first half. I was watching this game with a couple friends. Most everybody had gone to bed. I mean, it's Pac-12 after dark. You know, most people don't stay up for that. But I'm sitting there watching it, and the last play of the half, Arizona State throws a Hail Mary. It gets tipped, and their guy catches it, kind of like the Westerkamp Hail Mary a few years ago, falling out of the end zone. But as he's falling, he moves his hand back with the ball to cross it across the goal line to get the touchdown. Mm-hmm. But the refs called him down at the half-yard line, and they said no touchdown. And so it's the last play of the half. Both teams start heading into the tunnel, but the refs are reviewing the play because it's a scoring play or a potential scoring play, and they end up overturning it.
Yeah,
they overturned the call, and I could not believe myself. The broadcasters were shocked as well, because from all the camera angles given by the refs and given by the TV, there was no way to tell decisively whether the ball had crossed the goal line or not. There was no down-the-line shot, like a pylon cam or the goal line shot, so you couldn't. There was no conclusive evidence to overturn that call. So it's kind of going off speculation, but nonetheless, the refs overturn it, so it's called a touchdown, and they're like, all right, let's kick the PAT, and they look around, neither team is on the field because they both headed into the locker room.
My favorite part of that was when they sent the sideline reporter down the tunnel. And there's this absolutely hilarious shot of the sideline reporter walking down the tunnel. His back is to the camera, and he's still he's talking. And it's just... It's the most ridiculous shot I've seen in a football game in a long time.
Most bizarre thing I've ever seen happen to a football game.
And then USC came back through a different tunnel.
Yeah, like in Arizona. So Arizona State had been waiting in their tunnel for the final call, and Todd Graham sent his 11 people out. The problem was the touchdown happened the other end of the tunnel, or on the underside of the field compared to the tunnel. So Arizona's 11 players just trotted across the whole field. They get lined up. But then everybody's like, wait, where's USC?
And there's this wide shot of Clay Helton is the only person on the USC sideline.
Oh, my gosh. It was hilarious.
It was ridiculous.
They sent the sideline reporter down to find USC in the tunnel. They sent the field judge down the tunnel. And they just have all these shots of, like, people going to search for the USC football team. Nobody can find them anywhere in this stadium. And, yeah, like you mentioned, they come out some side tunnel in a different corner of the stadium. So they get down there and they kick the PAT and go to halftime. But by far the most bizarre thing I've ever seen at the end of football, to end the half of a football game. And again, it also kind of started with total speculation on a call that probably shouldn't have been overturned with the Hail Mary. But
no, it was really bizarre.
Really funny. If you get a chance, go look it up. And oh my gosh, that shot of Clay Helton alone on the sideline. All the broadcasters are just like, "Where's his football team? Where's USC at?"
Yeah, that was crazy. There are two games that I really wanted to touch on real fast, and that was...
What you got?
Arizona beat the snot out of the dark horse, the playoff dark horse, Washington State.
I'm done with that dark horse. They got shown the light quite a while ago.
Yeah, Arizona looks good. They have a great quarterback.
Oh, my gosh. Khalil, he's been running all over the place.
Yes, and then the last game I kind of wanted to touch on just a tad is... Georgia personally fired Jim McElwain from Florida with their beatdown.
Jim McElwain kind of fired himself with the whole fake death threats and stuff, too. It wasn't looking good going into the Georgia game. I think Georgia just kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah, so another coach has been fired before Butch Jones. That's one I wouldn't have predicted coming into the season. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will discuss the Huskers' win over Purdue. I'm not going to describe it in any other terms with that. It's a win.
It was a win. It was a win.
Millions of cats are put down because they can't find a home. The Cat House in Lincoln is doing their best to change that, but they need your help. Whether you're looking to adopt or just want to help the cause, the Cat House is the place to go. There are all sorts of ways to get involved, from donating food and other supplies to volunteering. And if you have a cat, make sure to get them spayed or neutered to help cut down on the number of cats in shelters. If you want to make a difference in an animal's life, check out the Cat House or visit their website at cathouse.org.
Dad, I'm hungry. Why don't we have anything to eat?
Those are words you never want to hear as a parent. But unfortunately, putting food on the table is a constant struggle for many low-income families here in Lincoln, and they don't have the necessary skills to get and maintain a job. They rely on volunteers at the Center for People in Need that can help them through the struggle. You can make a difference in their lives by getting involved in one of the many volunteer programs that the Center for People in Need offers. For more information, please visit centerforpeopleinneed.org.
We are live outside the home of Joe and Rosie Goddard, where a pretty big tickle fight broke out just minutes ago. Sources say their father instigated the laughter. Let's go inside for a comment. Apparently, they have no comment. Dads, let this be a reminder that it only takes a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
All right, we are back with the second string with me. I'm Nate Milbach with my co-host Alex Fernando. Let's talk about the Nebraska win against Purdue.
Oh my gosh, that was brutal to watch.
It was also brutal to watch. I was over at your place. We had the party, and it was really the party was fun.
You know, I thought of throwing a football party on a game that we had like a solid chance of winning and like really playing well in, and then we win. I mean, it was a great win to a great way to end the game, but. If you throw a football party, you got to have a solid performance from your team.
I don't think any game on our schedule is a solid chance to win.
Not anymore. That was...
That should have been proven to us in week 3 when we lost to NIU.
Fair enough. Nonetheless, Nebraska comes away with a 25-24 last-second victory at Purdue on the road. Tanner Lee leading the comeback. And Nate, we always do our little breakdown of the game. We go with our good, our expected, and our bad. What was your good from this game?
I mean, you just said it was Tanner Lee. Dude played the best game that he's had this whole season.
Probably his career.
He
He had career numbers, 431 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32 of 50, which upset me a little bit because this is the second time in 3 years we've thrown 50-plus passes at Purdue.
I know. We'll get to the running game in a little bit, but I just want to talk about Tanner Lee because I think he definitely played the best game of his career, and I think it can all be attributed to the fact that his mechanics, I think, have just gotten a little bit better. Mostly his mobility in the pocket, which is crucial when you have an offensive line like ours.
For sure.
He's shown a more willingness to step up, to sidestep, to roll out when the pocket breaks down, to throw it away. And it seemed like his tight passes were tighter than ever. He fit them into some real tight windows
Some
today.
of them may be a little bit too tight of windows for our liking, but you're right. Early on in the game, he had a few kind of high passes, a little bit away from the receivers. I'm like, oh boy, here we're in for another inaccurate day. But kind of once he settled down, once he kind of got his groove in, he played really well. I thought he was one of the definitely bright spots on our team. And second game without any interceptions, big improvement from early in the year. And I think he's making much better decisions, not throwing the ball into as much coverage, making a little bit quicker decisions, which is good to see because that was what he struggled with early on in the season. To switch up with your Tanner Lee, I'm going to add in a little bit of a different perspective with what my good was. For what I thought was really good, a bright spot in the game, were the young guns for Nebraska. Specifically Jalen Bradley, Jake Weinmaster, Ben Stilley, a couple linebackers, and then also we had Tyler Hoppus. He's not necessarily a young gun, but
He's a senior.
He's new to the offense, and I mean
his first year in D1 football.
Yeah, and he played arguably the best game of his career so far. 105 yards and a touchdown. Didn't have any drops.
I can't believe it.
I cannot believe it either. I've been calling him Tyler Droppus. I'm gonna need to see one more good game before I can take away that nickname. But no.
The receivers played well. They did. Stanley Morgan didn't have any drops.
Yep.
Which is good.
DPE had one really bad one for sure. I remember in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
JD Spielman looked all right, but Jalen Bradley, the lead rusher on our team, 7 carries, 42 yards, provided a spark in the second half.
Yeah, I think he showed a little bit of freshman explosiveness there.
Oh, for sure.
He's probably the fastest running back on our depth chart. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him get a few more carries. But I like our younger players.
No, he looked good. Yeah, and again on the defensive side, Ben Stilley came away with 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, half a sack. Khalil Davis, Carlos Davis playing well, 5 tackles and 3 tackles. I mean, Jake Weinmaster, my boy, getting in there, good friend of mine. Glad he got in for a couple tackles, but I think we're starting to see the youth of our depth chart a little bit more, just as some of the older guys, again, are getting hurt. We've had a lot of injuries this season, but also just kind of the wear and tear of the season. You got to get that youth in there, and I thought they played pretty well. I thought they gave a little bit of a spark, especially on offense with Bradley, as I mentioned, and I don't know, hopefully that means a bright future for us moving on.
Hopefully. So let's move on to expected. What was your as expected?
My as expected was actually Tanner Lee. So I thought he was good, but my expected part of it was I expected his improvement. I expected his improvement from Wisconsin to Ohio State. I expected this improvement yet again. And he's kind of jumping over the expectations that I've had. So I'm glad he could definitely be considered in my good. But again, that continual improvement throughout the season, that's what I wanted to see from him, and that's what we are seeing from him. Much more accurate than earlier in the season. Again, not throwing the ball into as much coverage. His completion percentage has gone up. He had 64 completion percentage this game compared to 56% over the course of the season. So he's getting better every game. His numbers have been going up from Wisconsin to Purdue. His completion percentage was 50%, 60.5% against Ohio State, and then 64% against Purdue. He's had more yards. Again, no interceptions. That constant improvement, that's what I expect out of Tanner Lee, having the experience of being in college football before at Tulane and moving up a level now at Nebraska. And I was glad to see that. I thought he played really well.
Yeah, he did. He definitely is making some strides forward, and while we've said multiple times that I don't think he'll ever reach the hype that we unfortunately set for him, I still think he has it in him to be a pretty good quarterback for the University of Nebraska, and I'm excited to see this year, the rest of this year, and next year, and see what he can do with it. Another year of improvement.
Yeah. What was your expected from this game, Nate?
I don't want to say it because it's kind of a negative thing, but. It's just our
we could only take out so many positives when you beat Purdue by 1, Nate.
It's our secondary's lack of coverage and their lack of because we're going to get into defense too.
Yeah. Lack of playmaking skills on the ball.
Lack of playmaking ability, lack of being able to wrap up. We just
my gosh, yeah. That's a whole defense.
And it's just and it's not entirely their fault. We'll talk about this when we preview Northwestern, but we're so banged up back there. Aaron Williams, Antonio Reed, Josh Kalu. Chris Jones is back there playing, but I think he showed this game that he really shouldn't be. He got burnt several times. That's because he just doesn't have the step.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, he had some poor form. He actually had to go out for a few plays because he made such a bad tackle attempt that he injured himself.
Yeah.
Eric Lee injured himself, in my opinion, on a bad tackling form as well. I'm just not, and like I said, it's what I expected, and it's a little frustrating because it's more negative than I would want to hope, but it just kind of is what it is. Now let's move on to our bad.
Well, before we get there, I mean, you bring up a good point with the secondary. You expected that. You expected the lackluster play. You expected them to get burned. You expected the poor tackling. Do you think that goes back to the coaching at all? I mean, we brought in our new secondary coach with Dante Williams. Personally, I think he's more of a recruiter than a coach from what I've seen. I mean, I see him on the sidelines, and I see him talking to these guys, and I've seen him yell from the sidelines onto the field and, show them on the sidelines what he wants them to be doing. But there's clearly some sort of miscommunication or some lack of development that's not being crossed.
I don't think I have enough information to definitively make that claim one way or the other. The only claim that I will make in regards to the coaching is that it's the first year of Bob Diaco's defense.
Yep.
I expected the struggle.
Oh, for sure.
We're very young and we're very beat up in the secondary. Yeah. And it's hard to expect much when all three of those things coalesce into a single maelstrom. I don't know enough about Coach Dante to know if he's not up to coaching par. I believe he is.
Oh yeah,
I believe in Coach Diaco. But like I said, it's a new system with new coaches, and these are new players.
Yeah,
it's going to be a struggle, and I think we should expect that struggle or a similar.
It's definitely not
going
to be a night and day difference game to game. Seeing that improvement. Again, and you mentioned all the injuries, so a lot of lack of experience. Hopefully that can improve, but I definitely feel you. I mean, that's kind of what I expected too. Our secondary just not being in the right position. If a ball's coming their way, they don't know how to turn around and knock it down or pick it. They don't know how to wrap up and tackle very well on the edge or contain those rushers. So
yeah, it's going to be a rough year. I think next year will be better, and I think that's what we just got to say. Now let's get to the bad, or as we like to call it, the offensive line. It's a synonym at this point.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We were talking before the show, and we're like, is there really any other comment you could make or any other group you could talk about that was this bad?
No. The answer's no, by the way.
No, I mean, coming into the last 3 games, Coach Riley's number one game plan was establish a run game. He's quoted that before probably every game this season, but especially the last 2 against Ohio State and against Purdue.
I don't like it.
And we have not established a run game. We haven't even been close to establishing a run game.
What did we have?
We had
55?
40 yards.
40. Oh, I didn't see Tanner Lee had negative 18.
Yeah, because Tanner Lee got sacked a few times.
I forgot that counts as negative rushing yards.
But yeah, 40 yards, all basically coming from Jalen Bradley, our freshman running back. Zigbo, again.
I'm not blaming Zigbo.
No.
he's not that kind of dynamic player where he can bust it outside, he can maneuver. He requires a good offensive line to really get going, which we just
at least a
don't.
hole or a block.
We don't.
Stuff.
It's what we don't have, and it stinks because Tanner Farmer went out with an injury, Michael Decker went out with an injury, and when you have two players, when you have your second string guy, Matt Farniok was in there with the cast playing right guard, and
two in the interior of the line, to our center and right guard. That's a big part of their offensive line, right in the middle. That you just a big piece to lose.
Yeah, especially people like Decker and Farmer who have been. I mean, Decker didn't play the first game, but they've been in there since.
Consistent starters, yeah.
They've been consistent starters. And when you lose that, it's just frustrating. And players with talent, Nick Gates, Gerald Foster, they have the ability, in my opinion, to be really good offensive linemen, but they just get sucked into their man way too often. Zero in, they put their head into their opponent's shoulder, and they cannot pick up blitzers as well as we'd like.
No, not at all. And again, too, with the penalties, Nick Gates, another holding penalty. I don't even want to count how many he's had this season.
Every time we had a flag, you're just like holding 68, and
I was right most of the time. I mean, it's getting to a point where you just wonder are the backups really that far behind these guys?
And if they are that far, does that say more about the coaching, or does that say more about the players? And
Yeah.
I honestly have no idea.
See, because, I mean, with the defense, we had a little bit of the excuse. It's a new system. We have new coaches in. Coach Cav's been here for 3 years.
Yes.
He's been running Coach Riley's offense for God knows how long with him at Oregon State. And he's been running it for at least 3 years here in Nebraska style. Mm-hmm. He's had these players to work with. He's had Nick Gates for 3 years.
Nick Gates, he's just the guy that disappoints me the most. I was expecting so much from him this year.
Everybody was. He's a conference level player, like an all conference level player that plays like a freshman.
I feel like he's regressed since his freshman year.
I would agree with that.
And I don't know. And when you lose people like Decker and Farmer, it really wreaks havoc on your offensive line's ability to be cohesive, to be to function as a group. It's just a struggle, and the run game struggles along with it. Like I said, without Trey Bryant, we do not have the running back playmaker that can. We don't have Amir Abdullah. I don't even think Amir Abdullah could run effectively behind this offensive line, in all honesty.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the injuries, but also just without the injuries, before the injuries, they get knocked back 2 yards every snap. They're in the backfield before we can even get going. And that's part of the run game I blame on the offensive line. Part of the run game I still blame on Danny Langsdorff as well. Again, Azigbo had over 20 carries against Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio State. He had 10 against Purdue. You're giving your best running back 10 carries?
That's the part that I don't mind, because like I said, I don't think Azigbo is the type of running back that you can just give 20 carries when your offensive line is terrible and say, "Oh, hey, Divine Azigbo, you need to make a play." I like Divine Azigbo. I think he's a great player in situations.
Yeah.
I think he could really grind a game down. But when your offensive line can't get that push, Azigbo has two options. He has run between the tackles, and he has a spin move, and that's about it.
That's true. But, I mean, I think just overall, you can tell that Langsdorff doesn't have much confidence in his offensive line. Nobody on our offensive system has confidence in our offensive line to run it. And they don't try very much.
And it probably shows. And like I said, I actually am not that angry about the de-emphasizing of the running game in this game, because Jalen Bradley, he left early with an ankle injury.
Yeah, and I mean, Tanner Lee was getting it done through the air. I think the biggest thing is kind of, again, finishing in the red zone. We had 5 offensive drives going to the red zone and came away with 12 points, 4 field goals, and 1 4 and out.
It's frustrating, and thank Drew. Thankfully, Drew Brown is the best player on our team.
Money man.
And got it done. But yeah,
we did get the win.
I'm happy. A win is a win. is a win, especially in this season.
A good final drive, too, by Tinnerly. I mean, he looked very comfortable in the pocket. He got rid of the ball quickly, found the open man.
Prevent defense prevents wins. There you go, Purdue. Don't do that again. All right, let's take a look towards next week, and let's discuss the Wildcats, the Northwestern Wildcats, 5-3, second in the Big Ten. They got some good players that are going to be tough to stop.
Oh, my gosh. This is going to be a very tough game for Nebraska to win. Always a tough game with the Battle of the NUs. I think this is one of the most underrated rivalries in the Big Ten.
In terms of the actual games being played, there's been the last 4 or 5 games against Northwestern have been really fantastic.
Yeah, they've always been a good game, always been a good team to play. They're coming off back-to-back overtime wins, overtime win at home against Iowa, and then this past weekend, triple overtime win at home against Michigan State, who's a very, very tough team to beat. And I don't know, I'm a little nervous coming into this game.
I am too. I actually predict that Northwestern's going to win. I think they will.
Realistically, you're probably right. Again, the optimist.
No, me too. Listen, don't conflate me saying that I think Northwestern's going to win to the fact that I think there's no chance. This isn't Ohio State. This isn't Penn State in a few weeks.
Fair enough.
We have a chance to win this game, but
it is going to be,
it's going to be very, very tough.
Oh, yeah.
Clayton Thorson can get it done.
He struggled this year, but he found some offense last week.
Pat Fitzgerald has frustrated me in how they've used Clayton Thorson.
Oh my gosh,
I've not been super impressed with Fitzgerald's coaching this year.
He's much more of a defensive coach, so I think you get it. You can
Justin Jackson.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Are we gonna get got by Justin Jackson?
Oh, we're gonna get got real bad by Justin Jackson. Dude's gonna run possibly more than Melvin Gordon did if we don't fix up our holes on defense.
And that's gonna be really hard because Mike Riley press conference yesterday. I'm gonna read you the injuries. I don't know if you've read this yet.
I haven't. What we got?
Okay, Riley says Michael Decker out indefinitely.
That.
Probably will miss the rest of 2017. Outside linebacker Luke Gifford, hip problem, questionable.
I'll ask Luke tomorrow. We'll see.
Antonio Reed re-injured his left knee. Mike Riley says we hope he will be okay. Aaron Williams says re-injured his neck.
Not good.
Riley says he could return. Eric Lee Jr. is in the concussion protocol, so that's unfortunate. Tanner Farmer out for an extended period of time with high ankle sprain. That's the other big one.
Okay.
Jalen Bradley sprained his ankle. Due to the language, I think he'll be back.
Yep.
But that's one of the more manageable losses. Tyrod Ferguson's out for an extended period of time with a foot injury, and that's the injuring list.
Wow.
Said Zach Darlington.
Growing every week.
Zach Darlington's sick, but he's just older.
Yeah, I mean, it's been growing every week, which is tough. And the biggest issue, again, our defensive line doesn't get a lot of push. That means our linebackers and our safeties and our corners have to make most of the tackles.
And when you're missing your best linebacker, Luke Gifford.
Oh, yeah. You're missing your best safety, Aaron Williams.
Yeah.
Those are two of the best tacklers on our team.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be tough. Northwestern, they
play fundamental football. They don't make mistakes.
Not a lot. Thorson, again, he's made a few. It's 10 TDs and 9 interceptions. He doesn't always make the best throws, but he's torched Nebraska multiple times in the past.
Yeah, I just think of the game last year where he just ran down the field for a 40-yard touchdown. He's not even like a barn burner runner.
No.
And that was with a better defense than we have now.
And for sure.
This is a game Nebraska can win. They can win, but I just don't think they will.
It's going to be tough. The other thing with Northwestern, too, is their defense. They held Saquon Barkley to 75 yards. Kind of gave it up late in the game, but their defense holds teams down very well. Patrick Fisher, their linebacker, he's a true freshman.
Really? I didn't know that.
Running their defense, basically.
Really?
Pat Fitzgerald, he played linebacker at Northwestern. He thinks Patrick Fisher could be the best linebacker the school's ever seen.
I don't doubt it. He's been really impressive when I've watched him play.
Yeah,
it'll be a frustrating game. I think it'll be very similar. How would I say it? It'll be very similar to the Wisconsin game, except not as bad.
Yeah, where we have them right where we want them, but we don't cross that. We don't get over that hump and finish it.
That's how I feel like it's going to be. My score prediction is going to be Northwestern 24, Huskers 13.
13, okay. I'll take the over. I'll take my Huskers just because I gotta go with the Huskers.
That's fair.
I mean, it's at home. The crowds, we saw a win last week. We're getting a little bit jazzed up, hoping we can get to a bowl game, get back on track. I'll take Nebraska in a close one. We'll go 27-25. We'll make it interesting.
All right, we're going to take a quick 1-minute break, but when we come back, we'll discuss the playoff rankings.
Oh, boy.
Graduation is in a few months or in a few years. Gaining hands-on experience in your field of interest is a must. While a college degree is a fruitful step towards acquiring a top-tier career, today's employers are looking for college grads that already have some experience under their belt. Here at Husker HireLink, we're here to ensure that you're the person they're looking for. By simply uploading your current resume and skills, we can connect you with hundreds of employers seeking to hire college students to fill their intern, part-time, and full-time positions. Log on to HuskerHireLink.com today to get started.
A new guideline on how to treat a first seizure has been released by the American Academy of Neurology and the American Epilepsy Society. The guideline found the risk of another seizure is greatest within the first 2 years, but that taking epilepsy drugs immediately after a first seizure may reduce the risk of having another seizure. Neurologists and patients must discuss risks and benefits before starting any treatment. To learn more about epilepsy, visit AAN.com. That's AAN.com.
All right, we are back with the second string. Nate Muehlbach, Alex Fernando. Hey, you know what time it is?
It's playoff time.
Well,
Playoff ranking time,
playoff
at
ranking
least.
time. The playoff,
First playoff rankings of the season, and they are a doozy, Nate.
are they?
They are a doozy. So,
Tell me about them.
all right. Well, everybody, I mean, you always know Bama's going to be number one, right?
Yes, definitely.
Like, they're never not going to be number one.
No.
Today, they're not number one. Georgia takes the top spot in the first college football playoff rankings of the season.
The fourth, only the fourth team to ever have the number one spot in the playoff ranking.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
But, no, yeah, the Bulldogs rounding the top off. Number one, Bama down to number 2. Notre Dame sliding in at number 3. Clemson number 4. And then the first two outside looking in, Oklahoma and Ohio State. Penn State falling down to 7 right behind them. TCU after that at 8. Wisconsin and Miami rounding out the top 10 at 9 and 10.
First things first, these rankings mean nothing. I cannot emphasize this enough. They're fun to talk about. It's fun to say, and I agree, Georgia should be number 1 over Alabama. I didn't think the playoff committee had the guts to do that. Georgia has the better schedule, the better wins. They just look like I don't know about the better team, but they look like the more impressive team so far. And
yeah.
Alabama has a few chances to impress.
They got LSU this weekend. So, and
I'm afraid for LSU. This is a classic Saban's not going easy on them.
Yeah, LSU back in the rankings though. I mean, they've improved the last couple weeks after the whole Orgeron speculation. I'm still not entirely convinced on him, but we'll see what he could do out in Tuscaloosa. But
Notre Dame, that's the one that surprises me. We talked about this last week a little bit.
We talked about the potential of it, and I think, again, they proved the last couple weeks, demolishing USC, solid win against top 15 North Carolina State. Their only loss is a 1-point last-second field goal to Georgia, to the top team.
I mean, I know
now just about everybody
I know
else.
that's a ridiculous meme, quote unquote quality loss, but it kind of boggles my mind that they put them at number 3. I didn't think they played a great schedule, especially in the first half. I think their second half can definitely.
Oh yeah, the second half is what's going to boost them.
Yeah,
but they've got the 2 quality wins so far. They, if you want to go with it, have the quality loss. But then coming up, they got Wake Forest. They're going to have Miami. They're going to have Navy and Stanford. And they're at Miami and Stanford, 2 top 25 teams. Yeah. Miami's in the top 10.
Notre Dame's just got to keep winning. If they win all their games, they're in. And
I think so.
That's the purpose of this first playoff rankings and why you shouldn't take it so seriously. Because every team in the top 10 or top 11, or actually top 12 if you consider Washington.
13, Virginia Tech's got a shot. They've only got 1 loss to Clemson.
Virginia Tech. This is a top 13. These are the top 13 teams that can make it in. Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Penn State, TCU, Wisconsin, Miami, Oklahoma State, Washington, Virginia Tech. Those are the 13 teams that have a shot to make the playoffs.
You don't think a 2-loss team can squeak in?
No, I don't.
There's a lot of chaos that can happen between now and the end of the season, Nate.
If there's a bunch of 2-loss teams, then yes. But as of right now, I think these 13 are the only ones that have a shot. And this is why you should really discard this first playoff rankings, because all 13 of these teams, you just got to win.
Yeah.
If Wisconsin wins out, they're in the playoffs. I don't care if their schedule is one of the worst in the entire nation. If they go 12-0, they're in.
Really?
Yes. Oh, for sure.
13-0 with the Big
13
Ten Conference. Yeah.
Miami goes 13-0, even though they're number 10, they're in. If TCU finishes 13-1, 12-1, they're in. If Ohio State goes 12-1, they're in. If Oklahoma goes 12-1, they're in. If Clemson goes 12-1, they're in. If Washington goes 12-1, they're in.
Yeah, that is one thing with the playoff. I mean, the first rankings and the rest of the rankings from here on out, they shuffle around so much. One thing I was very appreciative of is they kept the head-to-heads wins as a major factor. They have Oklahoma ahead of Ohio State and Ohio State over Penn State.
I'm glad they did that too.
Last year, that was a big issue because Penn State, they had 2 losses, but they had the head-to-head win over Ohio State, and they had the conference championship. But Ohio State gets the nod.
I don't think they're going to do that again, especially after the Ohio State laid the egg.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But like I said, it's interesting to see another team be at number 1. The 3 teams that have been number 1 in the playoff rankings have been Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, and what do you think the 4th team was?
Probably Florida State?
No.
Ohio State?
No.
What?
Starts with an M.
Was it Michigan?
No. We're only at 9 minutes left, so I'll just tell you it was Mississippi State. Dak Prescott.
That's right.
When they beat Alabama.
That's right.
They jumped. It was the very first playoff ranking. They were there for 1 week.
Yep.
Then they lost. So they're in good company.
A lot of reshuffling could be going around here.
Yeah.
And speaking of reshuffling, Nate, what about some reshuffling of coaches around the college football landscape?
It's Butch Jones is gone at the end of the season. It's foreseen. Jim McElwain's gone.
Jim McElwain's gone already. He's the first coach to be fired midseason this year.
It'll be interesting to see where all the SEC teams get their coaches. Obviously, Scott Frost is a big one. We'll see where he ends up.
Interesting comments about Scott Frost were made today by none other than Bill Moose, new athletic director of Nebraska. He said he expects Frost to have a Power 5 job, quote, sooner rather than later, end quote.
I mean, that's not a hard comment to make.
No,
I expect Scott Frost to have
Is that hinting at something for Nebraska?
No, I'm not going to speculate until Mike Riley is still the head coach of Nebraska. And until he's not, I'm not going to speculate about Scott Frost or
You're the one who wants Scott Frost here the most.
No,
No, all right, that's fair. You never want to just say someone's gone. I don't know if we really want Scott Frost here yet. We still have a lot of season to see what Coach Riley has to do.
There's a lot of season left, and like I said, I don't like speculating when we still have our coach here. If Mike Riley is still our coach, I'll be happy and I'll accept that. And if he's not, you have to trust
see where we go.
Yeah, you'll have to see where you go. And Scott Frost will be at a Power 5 job next year. That's not an argument, whether it's Florida, whether it's Tennessee, whether it's somewhere else, like maybe even here, who knows? But he will be. He's the hottest coaching commodity on the market, and you need that pay raise.
Yeah, that's fair.
Got to get that money, though. Let's talk about a few games coming up next year. Not next year, next week.
Nate, come on. We don't want to wait till next year.
This is the second time I've referred to things in years, not weeks.
We don't want to wait that long.
How about Bedlam?
Bedlam. Oh, great way to kick off our college football weekend. Big game.
I'm so nervous.
Oh my gosh.
Oklahoma State opened as a 3.5-point favorite, and I'm so nervous. It never makes me feel good.
This has Baker Mayfield ripping Oklahoma State a new one written all over it.
No, don't do this to me, man.
I'm sorry.
I went to the game in 2014.
Oh no.
When Oklahoma made the playoff and they beat them like 56-14. I went to that game and it was cold and it was nasty and I was not happy.
Understandable.
The whole game.
I'm sorry, this one does not look good.
It
for
feels
Oklahoma State.
it feels very similar to that game.
This does feel similar. Oklahoma State coming off a solid win, big points up against West Virginia. I don't know if they can bring it again against Oklahoma. The rivalry is always tough, always some great games. Oklahoma, I mean, they're not the greatest.
They can get wrecked on defense. Mason Rudolph, James Washington, Justice Hill, James McCleskey,
There's potential. Oklahoma
they have the players. I'm very worried about the defense. I'm very worried about the coaching. I like Mike Gundy. He's done so many good things, but especially against OU, he freezes and he coaches scared, and that's what I'm worried about.
coaching not to lose.
It's exactly. I saw a post on social media that was talking about some of the recent games between the two teams, and they showed a play of Bob Stoops going for it in a really tough situation. They're like, that's why Bob Stoops is a better coach than Mike Gundy, because Mike Gundy wouldn't have called that play against OU.
Yeah.
And I hate it because I love Mike Gundy. He's one of my favorite coaches in college football, obviously, but there's some truth to that, and I truly hope that they can get over seems the block and win another.
We'll see what happens. I'm kind of torn to see how this game will go out, because on paper you'd expect a high-flying, high-scoring game. I mean, Oklahoma State's 80th in the nation in pass defense. Oklahoma's 88th in pass defense. Both giving up over 230 yards a game through the air, and both these quarterbacks can sling it. But, I mean, we thought that would happen against Texas with Oklahoma State. We thought that Oklahoma would kind of light it up against some other teams, and this could just be one of those where you expect the highest points ever, and it ends up being a defensive struggle.
It could be. I wouldn't be surprised with that either. Let's go.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm taking the Sooners in that one.
Let's go with another game that has massive playoff implications.
Oh, you don't want to talk about? Okay.
How about Virginia Tech, Miami?
Virginia Tech, Miami is a very interesting one.
This feels like a de facto playoff quarterfinals game.
It could be. It definitely the play-in. I mean, winner is the inside track on the ACC championship for sure in the Atlantic Division. Miami's playing really well, getting them at home. You haven't really heard from Virginia Tech since they lost to Clemson.
But they're still good. They're very good.
Oh, they've been playing really well. They have the most points they've given up since Clemson is 10. 10 to Boston College, 7 to North Carolina, and 3 to Duke. So playing very consistent, good defense. I think that's going to be a tough game as well for Miami to win.
Yeah, it'll be tough. Like I said, a de facto playoff quarterfinals is what it feels like.
Yep.
Alex, any last game you think will be interesting?
Arizona at USC, number
Pac-12
22.
South.
Yep, another Pac-12 after dark. Maybe get some craziness again.
I'm excited.
But
I'm excited for this one.
This is for the lead in the Pac-12 South. Arizona could be, again, have the inside track up to the Pac-12 championship with a win at the Coliseum. USC looking to, again, kind of bounce back after the Notre Dame loss. They got a solid one last week against Arizona State, but Khalil Tate and Arizona's running game. Khalil Tate has almost 1,000 yards rushing this season. He's their team's leading rusher and passer, and he's basically only been in for the last few games primarily. Arizona State I don't know. I like Arizona in this one.
It'll be a fun. I'm excited for this one. Khalil Tate, Sam Darnold, battle of some real good quarterbacks.
Very different style quarterbacks too.
Yes. The final game I kind of wanted to bring up is, I'm trying to think, NC State, Clemson, probably.
That's a good one.
It's the other
Clemson at NC State.
At NC State, it's the other playoff, not playoff, ACC. It's basically the ACC semifinals.
Yes,
this week.
This week, yeah. Virginia Tech at Miami and Clemson at NC State.
And I think Clemson, ranked number 4 in the playoffs. They valued the schedule. They have 6 wins against teams with winning records, the most in the country. This is the question to see if they are back and if they can prove it, and if that loss to Syracuse was just a fluke.
They're back. They didn't go that far. I mean,
I know.
They had one loss when their quarterback was injured.
I know, but tell that to the voters. Tell
Fair
that
enough.
to the public. They have short memories. This is their chance to go, no, we are still the same good Clemson that we've always been, to prove that they belong in that playoff spot, that they deserve that playoff ranking.
Yeah, definitely going to be a good one. Big weekend for the ACC. Another quick one to watch. Number 7 Penn State fighting off the loss at number 24, Michigan State also fighting off the loss.
Expect an angry Saquon Barkley in the Nittany Lions.
I expect a very angry Penn State team overall. They're going to bring it to Michigan State in that one. That was an 11 a.m. kick too, early on in the day.
It'll be a good one to get your teeth started on.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Well, I think that is all the time we have for you tonight. Wow, that was a fun show. I like that.
Yeah, a lot of great discussion. The playoff rankings, first ones. I know you don't like them too much, but you never know. They're fun to look at and talk about.
It's fun to talk about. Just don't put too much stock in them.
We made it through talking about the Husker game, so that was nice.
Call me in a week.
Yeah, we'll see. Northwestern's going to be a tough game for Nebraska. We'll see if we establish a run game this time, but I don't know. We got a long season left with these 4 games. For Nate Mielbach and Alex Fernando, for Nate Mielbach, I am Alex Fernando, and thank you for listening to the Second String on KRNU2. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.